Hello, hello, hello. Yes, yay. Our technical challenges have been addressed and we are live. I'm so excited for how to have better interracial interactions. So if you're tuning in, I'd love to hear who you are, how you are, where you are. So please put that information on the chat. I would love to interact with you throughout our time together. And thank you for your patience. I was having a little bit of a technical challenge. Um, let's see. Okay. But I think those are all addressed now and we are together. So this is very, very exciting as we talk about how to have better interracial interactions. And right now, I'm really thinking of Sly Stone, who passed away today at the age of 82, and just what an incredible legacy. And I'm going to be publishing an article about him and his commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion, and what an incredible talent and vision and revolutionary force. Sly Stone, thank you. Thank you for all you did and continue to do to bring joy to America and really exemplify how we can all make beautiful music together when we learn how to relate with one another. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. So I'm going to go ahead, since we got a little bit of a late start, I want to just dive in to the topic, which is, I'd love to hear from you. Have you ever had a bad interracial interaction? And if so, how did it make you feel? So if you're tuned in and could post in the chat about that, I'd love to hear from folks about their interracial interactions. And I know I have been there. Okay. That is literally why I decided to create this presentation, is that for most of my adult life, continuing through today, I just had one, not this weekend, but the weekend before, I have had interracial interactions that made me feel bad, that I know made the other party feel bad. And it's a lifelong journey to unlearn our conditioning and to adopt new beliefs and behaviors, and then things are always changing too, right? And not every person, you can't make a grandiose assumption that the way I'm going to interact with a particular person of color is going to be received, you know uniformly, right? People are people, we're all individuals. But there is some really great social psychology studies of what happens in interracial interactions, and that's what I'm going to be sharing today with you all. So and I want you to reflect, if you have had a bad interracial interaction, what did you learn from it? And could you or did you repair the relationship afterwards? And I think this is a very important point, is that often it is the first interaction that goes poorly. And then it's kind of difficult after that to even have a relationship, right? You get off on the wrong foot and the trust is broken from the beginning. And it can be very difficult to then even try to reach out and strengthen the relationship, or create a relationship. But the good news is that having better interracial interactions is a learnable skill, especially important for the people with the most power in interracial interactions to learn this skill. Okay. And typically, that is going to be the person with the lighter skin tone. So, the white person is going to have typically more power in the interracial interaction. There's also, of course, interracial interactions between people of different races who one of them is not white. And in many of those cases, it will be the person with the lighter skin tone who has the most power. But, you can't always generalize about these things. Okay. But for all of us, this is a learnable skill. Okay. We can have more positive interracial interactions, and that is going to help us to build relationships across difference, to navigate conversations across difference. Because you'll be engaged in a conversation across difference. I know this happens to me. I'm involved in them all the time. When out of the blue, whoo, there you go again, doing something that causes harm. But you will be able to repair, okay, if you know how to recognize and receive feedback with grace when you cause harm in an interracial interaction. So, all of this, we can get better at it, people. I know we can because I have, although, of course, as I mentioned, I continue to make mistakes all along. So why is it important to have better interracial interactions? I think I've touched on this a little bit in this preamble. It is so important because, as the saying goes, you only get one chance to make a first impression. Okay. And so if you can go into that first interaction with confidence that you know how to earn trust, that is going to go a long way to being able to make interracial friendships, work relationships, whatever the case may be, better. Okay. And when we have better interracial interactions, it creates psychological safety for everybody. It allows for you to have fun, okay? When people are feeling terrible because they just had a terrible interracial interaction, it can ruin your whole day. It can cause chronic health problems. I mean, it has really, really bad implications for society, and it further divides us, right? It further um, pits us against each other and keeps us divided. So it is so important, I would say, especially right now, y'all, especially right now, when you have a small handful of extremely wealthy, powerful people trying to just accumulate all the wealth and power and suppress and oppress everybody else by pitting us against each other and rewarding white people with tiny amounts of power for our allegiance to them, right? When in fact, all of this is about the accumulation of wealth and power in the hands of a few. So if we can learn, if we all who are being oppressed by the 1% can learn how to relate across difference as equals, especially in this time, we can form a united opposition and really take back our country, right? We can create the kind of future that we want for ourselves and for future generations in which all people are thriving. All people are self-actualizing. All people have access to great public education and great clean water and healthy food and affordable places to live and college educations if they want it and great healthcare. There is more than enough in this society for everyone. It's just that right now there is a tremendous disbalance where you have 1%, buying, I don't know, 3 different yachts or whatever it is they spend their money on, I have no idea. And most Americans can't afford to put food on the table. There's something very, very wrong with that picture, and we can change that. And fundamental to being able to change that is having better interracial interactions, okay? So if you're just joining us and you have something to say about this, please do put that in the chat. I would love to hear your experiences and your beliefs about why having better interracial interactions is important. So, what we're going to do today, our agenda is to define what is it that we're talking about? What does that mean? Better interracial interactions. And we're going to discuss what happens in interracial interactions that causes them to frequently result in harm and frequently cause distrust on both sides. And then we're going to share some specific strategies to make interracial interactions better. And then we'll apply them if there's time, because I do want to keep to 1 hour. I don't want to go beyond that, but we'll apply that to some scenarios and Q&A. Okay. So thank you so much for joining. Go ahead. If you're just joining now, put your name and your pronouns and where you're joining us from in the chat. Would love to hear from you as we talk about how to have better interracial interactions. So, you may be wondering, why should I believe a white woman named Karen talking about how to have better interracial interactions? And you would not be wrong, right? Uh, yes, unfortunately, many, many, many white women really are terrible at interracial interactions and really inflict a lot of harm. And historically, for 400 years, have been inflicting tremendous harm in interracial interactions. And um, this pattern of behavior, this belief system must stop. And that is my purpose. My mission in life is to reach and teach white women on how to change our beliefs and behaviors so that we can stop causing harm and start building interracial sisterhood and solidarity. Um, so how do I do that? I have a company. I founded Racy Conversations. We are a workplace workshop facilitation company. I founded in 2014. Our mission is to inspire the anti-racist generation, and I facilitate how to address racism in the workplace workshops in companies, workplaces all throughout the country and throughout the Bay Area. So I teach the material that I'm going to teach you now. I teach in workplaces all the time. And then back in 2017, I started the Interracial Sisterhood Coalition because I saw a need. The mission of the Interracial Sisterhood Coalition is to unite women across difference so that we can secure our collective safety and freedom. Okay. I saw a need for this because I saw this huge divide between women of color, white women, um, and across different areas as well, across generation, across um, ability, across sexuality. And it was really interesting when I found, oh, thank you. Thank you for joining us, Teresa. So glad you are here. Um, yeah. So I started hosting interracial sisterhood conversations because I saw a need for women to have a space outside of the workplace where we could get to know each other and have meaningful conversations about what divides us so that we can start to heal the relationship between us. So I host interracial sisterhood events. There's an interracial sisterhood online membership community. Um, we do cohorts of like online sessions, which we're launching a new online session June 23rd that's specifically for white women. It's called Becoming Trustworthy. And we host interracial sisterhood retreats. So we hosted one in Miami in 2023. We hosted one in San Francisco in 2024. And in 2025, we're going to be on the beautiful island of Barbados. That is in November of 2025. And if you're curious about learning more about that, please contact me. I'd love to share more, and I'll be sharing a little bit more about our new cohort program for white women at the end of our conversation today. So I also believe, I could be wrong here, but I believe I am the only white woman named Karen to have gone viral for positive reasons. So on the FU Karen Reddit, they nicknamed me Common Sense Karen. And you can see here the tweet that I sent. I can't really read it, but it's something to the lines that hashtag Karen is not a slur. It is a stereotype that white women earned by behaving like monsters, voting for monsters, and raising monsters. Our behavior is so atrocious to everyone except for ourselves that our own children are making memes mocking us. Okay. Um, so what else? Another moment of virality. You may have seen my 2018 video, No More Permit Patties, where I was holding white women accountable for calling the police on Black people for inane reasons. So in this case, it was a white woman here in San Francisco who called the police on her neighbor, an 8-year-old girl who was selling water. So, this is some of my experience. Now, how did I this is a picture of me growing up. I'm kind of you can tell my age based on what we are wearing. So, uh how did I evolve from someone who grew up in a white family, in an almost entirely white community that had been a sundown town and that was a hotbed of the John Birch Society, which is a white supremacist organization. Um, how did I evolve into someone who is such a strong proponent of ending racism, ending sexism, etc.? And I'm just very, very, very fortunate that I have had a life of experience working in organizations where I was in the minority, where white people were in the minority. So almost every workplace that I have been a part of. I began my career in the immigrants' rights movement, and I later shifted focus to youth workforce development. I spent 10 years working in grassroots immigrants' rights organizations and 10 years working for the City of New York Department of Youth and Community Development. And then I went back to working for nonprofit organizations and ultimately became a consultant to nonprofit organizations. And in all of those contexts, I was reporting to women of color. I've almost all of my bosses have been women of color who were extraordinary role models and also gave me very direct feedback on what it was that I was doing that was good and what it was that where I could improve. Okay. And then I also had to navigate, okay, how do not only how do I report to a woman of color, but how do I manage very diverse teams. My first team had about 20 members of it, and they were from 15 different countries. So imagine as a relatively young white woman, that was when I was like 27 years old, um, managing this team. And let me tell you, I made every mistake under the sun, but they also gave me feedback on how I could do better. And I was in a larger institution, a larger organization in which there was no racial majority. It was a very diverse organization at all levels of the hierarchy. And I had to learn how to show up in that space and earn trust. And I'm so grateful to my colleagues who gave me grace and gave me feedback. And, I was able to build relationships over time. So then in 2014, through a conversation with these two amazing humans, that's Dom Jones and Karen Adelor, that was when I had my racial awakening and I realized, okay, I need to stop preparing young adults of color for the workplace and start preparing the workplace for young adults of color. And that's when I really decided that I'm going to dedicate the remainder of my life till my last dying breath to fighting against racism in our society. And then later, I added on the component of building interracial sisterhood and solidarity. So that is how I came to learn the things that I'm going to be sharing with you today. And I see, oh, Michael, oh my gosh, I can't believe you're here. Thank you. Thank you so much for being here. There's a difference between Karen and Care. Yes, correct, correct. Yes, definitely. Thank you for that feedback. Okay. I am so glad you're here. And of course, if you have any comments or questions, put those in the chat. I'd love to keep this super interactive as we go along. So, yes, this is my dream, y'all. This is a picture of an interracial sisterhood event that we did in January of 2020 um, in Oakland, and it was such a beautiful event. It was just packed, sold out. We had such a great experience listening to each other's stories and just building community. And I have a dream that all people in the United States are living in harmony with each other, that we have prosperity, that we are able, every single person is able to self actualize to the highest extent. And we have a wonderful, vibrant community where all people are seen, heard, respected, all cultures are valued, and everybody gets along. And I know it is possible. I know it is possible. I know that it is wealthy, powerful people who are pitting us against each other and trying to make us hate each other. And so the greatest form of resistance is to ignore their nonsense and listen to each other. Okay? The powerful people are never going to end racism. They're never going to end sexism. That's what they derive their power from. Okay? It's gonna have to be on us, as Bob Marley said, to get up, stand up for our rights, and stand up with each other, to emancipate ourselves from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our minds, y'all. We can do this. We can do it, okay? And it would be my honor for you to keep watching these videos and also suggest, what additional kinds of videos you would like to see that would be helpful to you in this process. I have a dream. Okay, you know how we see these signs everywhere? Welcome to our smoke-free campus, right? And how many people who are watching this, put it in the chat if you can remember when there weren't any signs like this. I mean, I remember when people were smoking all over the place, okay? I remember when, when there were, um, people smoked in airplanes. And yeah, I mean, that's how old I am. Okay. But over time, as we became more knowledgeable about the health impact of smoking and that it was a leading cause of preventable death, despite the wealth and influence of the tobacco companies, despite the the hospitality sector, restaurants and bars and hotels didn't want to ban smoking. Nobody wanted to ban smoking. But little bans started to emerge here and there. And then finally, does anyone recall who got the most major smoking ban passed initially? It was actually Mike Bloomberg when he was elected mayor of New York. It was a very unpopular position to take, but he said, "I'm taking it. I'm banning smoking in all workplaces, including bars and restaurants in New York City." And once it was done in New York City, then other places started to do it too. And now we see signs like this one everywhere. Well, my dream is that within our lifetime, so that all happened not only within our lifetime, that happened within the last, what is it, 20 years. Okay. It was not that long ago. So my dream is that within our lifetime, we see signs like this one, but it says, "Welcome to our harm-free campus," in every space, in every workplace, in every school, in every public space in our country. And we all understand what it means and we all abide by it, and we all cease causing harm to one another, because racial harm is a public health emergency. Racial harm ends people's lives prematurely. It causes strokes and high blood pressure and diabetes and just all kinds of problems. And it wastes everybody's time. Imagine how much time and energy would be freed up if we were not being racist and harmful to one another, and instead learned how to get along with each other, learned how to relate across difference as equals, and treated each other with dignity and respect. That would be, not only would it free up our time to do productive things, it would make all of our lives incredibly better because it would be more joyful. We would have more fun. It would be incredibly beautiful. And it is something that we can do. You and I, we can be the ones to start this trend and to teach other people. And that is what I'm trying to do here. So Michael says, "I remember folks were smoking everywhere." See, it was within our lifetime, right? And you would come home and your clothes would smell like smoke. Yeah. So we can make a significant change, y'all. We did it with smoking. We can do it with racism. Okay. So now we're going to get into the meat of what we're here to talk about. Let's define interracial interaction. What exactly does that mean? Better interracial interactions. So I'm going to say interracial interactions are when people of different ethnicities come into contact with each other. Okay. And I use the term here, ethnicities, because as my mentor Karen Clopton taught me, racism does not, a race does not actually exist. It is an invented concept. It is a social construct that was designed as a justification for racism, the belief that races were inherently different from each other and that some races are superior and others are inferior. That was a belief system that started, in the Catholic Church, and then scientists created studies to document this, and just on and on and on, to legitimize this belief system as a justification for racist behavior. okay, as Dr. Ibram Kendi teaches us. So there is no such thing as race. It's an invented concept, but a very powerful one because so many of us have it so deeply embedded in our minds to the degree that, doctors to this day, highly educated people, believe that Black people can withstand more pain when, nah, they're actually fully human like everybody else and have the same pain limitations as everybody else. Okay. But this indoctrination that there is inherent differences between different people of different races is extremely strong. So we have to unlearn that. Okay. There is no biological difference between people of different races. In fact, the amount of our DNA that determines what our skin color, eye color, hair texture is a teeny, teeny, tiny fraction. It's not even 1% of our DNA. Now, there are different ethnicities, right? Your ethnicity is the shared characteristics of a group of people, often coming from a particular geography. So it's a group of people who like the same music and eat the same kind of food and practice the same kind of religion and, um, you know, uh, those types of things. Okay. That does exist. So when people of different ethnicities come into contact with each other, and I think we also often think of racism as being racial slurs or a verbal exchange, but so much of racism is not, it's not verbal. It is energy, it is facial expression, body language, etc. Okay. So it's not only the words we say, it's everything about us. It's about our energy, our body language, our facial expression, etc. Okay. And please, continue to put your questions or comments into the chat. So, what does it mean to have better interracial interactions? I'm going to define that is when people of different ethnicities come into contact with each other and both parties feel seen, heard, and respected. Okay, that is what I would call a better interracial interaction. That is an interracial interaction that is going to build trust, build community, build relationship. That's what I mean by a better interracial interaction. Better interracial interactions are possible when the person with the most power in the interaction knows how to make the other person feel seen, heard, and respected. So, in interracial interactions between white people, Black people, people of color, the white person inherently holds more power because we hold more societal power as a group. Okay. White people are the dominant group in the United States. So when the white person in the interracial interaction knows how to make the person of color feel seen, heard, and respected, you are going to have a better outcome from that interracial interaction. The person of color may know how to make the white person feel seen, heard, and respected, and probably um, have been conditioned to do that because their survival has depended on, for generations, making sure that white people feel seen, heard, and respected. But if the white person in the interaction does not know how to do that, it's going to be a bad outcome from the interaction. Does that make sense? Both parties have to feel seen, heard, and respected, not just one. And yeah, okay, I'll leave it at that. Oh, okay. Now there can be, of course, as I mentioned earlier, interracial interactions between people of color. And frequently, the person with the lighter skin in that interaction will have more power, but it could be, other factors as well. It could depend on immigration status. There's many different factors. But again, it is going to be in the hands of the person with more power in the interaction to make the other person feel seen, heard, and respected. Okay. Better interracial interactions result in trust. Better interracial interactions result in community, result in building relationships. Now, this doesn't mean that, you know, every interaction is going to, how can I put it? That every single interaction is not going to cause harm or, um, how can I put it? I'm not doing a good job of explaining this. Um, yeah, I'm not trying to say like, okay, as a white person, you can learn how to have better interracial interactions every single time. As I mentioned earlier, I myself just last weekend did something that I was horrified afterward. Okay. These patterns of beliefs and behaviors are so um, deep. It's a lifetime process of unlearning them and adopting new ones. But one of the other aspects of good interracial interactions is being able to receive feedback with grace when you have screwed up and being able to apologize and change the behavior and earn the trust, keep in relationship. Okay. So I hope this is all making sense to people. Please let me know if this is making sense or not making sense. Please let me know in the comments. Okay, so I'm drawing here on um, a, a, a study that was published in the Journal of Social Psychology. It's called To Be Liked versus Respected: Divergent Goals in Interracial Interactions. And social psychologists studied interracial interactions and interviewed the parties in the interracial interaction afterward, to see what their intentions were and what they had actually done in the interracial interaction, and then from that, um, derived these findings. Okay. And I'll put the link in the notes for this video so you can find this study. It's a little complicated. It's very academic, but I kind of distilled down the key findings in this slide. So what happens in an interracial interaction? What they found is that we enter the interracial interaction with divergent goals. People of color enter the interaction wanting to be respected. They have a lifetime of experience interacting with white people. Often, white people have had positions of authority in their lives, whether that as teachers, police, employers, bosses, et cetera, et cetera. So they have had many interactions with white people in the course of their life, many of which um, were not positive. Many interactions that left them feeling unseen, unheard, disrespected in these interactions. So their sense of what is going on in a white people's uh, behavior is very, very strong based on this lifetime of experience. Okay. They want to be treated as an individual and not as a representative of their entire group. This is very important. And they become offended when white people act on stereotypes. Okay, so keep this in mind. Now, let's go over and look at what is happening in the interracial interaction from a white perspective. And again, as I mentioned earlier, white people inherently have more power in interracial interactions. So a lot depends on what the white person does. So white people enter an interracial interaction wanting to be liked. Did you know that 90% of white people in our country don't have a single friend of color? Our social networks are extremely segregated. And when you think about it, I mean, this is kind of a natural outgrowth of our residential segregation, educational segregation. Oftentimes, I know this was true for me. I grew up in an almost entirely white community. The first time I ever started to really interact with people of color is when I went to college. And then, like I said, I had the experience of working in these work environments where white people were the minority. That is very unusual. Very few white people have that experience, right? We're used to being the dominant group. Many white people, I'll speak from my high school, they never left the community where I grew up in. They still live there. Okay. So they have not had many experiences interacting across difference. Um, so because we have this limited experience interacting across difference, we want to be liked, okay, because we want to get proof that we are not racist. We want to feel accepted. Um, and um, because of our limited experience and all the racist garbage that we've been accumulating throughout our life, the messages we've learned from our parents, from our schools, from TV, the media, right? We are very self conscious in these interactions. We're super self conscious and nervous, okay? And we're trying to be liked. And so all of those impulses go into our brains and we're like, okay, I'm here. I'm meeting a Black person for the first time. Oh my God, I really want them to like me. So, what can I do that will make them like me? Oh, I know. I'm going to ask them something that will show that I'm cool and I understand about Black people, and then they will like me. So, let's say I'm meeting a millennial Black woman for the first time, and I say, hey, did you go to the Cowboy Carter concert? Now, she may have very well gone to the Cowboy Carter concert, and maybe she won't take offense to that. But what she might say is, are you asking me that because I am a Black woman? Like, why would you assume? Why would you ask that particular question? Would you ask that question of me if I were white? Okay. So that question is off putting, even if she did go to the Cowboy Carter concert, right? A better question, if you want to bridge and build relationship, might be, oh, what kind of music are you into? Or have you been to any good concerts recently? Right? Do you see the difference in those two questions? In the first question, did you go to the Cowboy Carter concert? I am making an assumption, a stereotype based on the way she looks, that she may have gone to the Cowboy Carter concert, right? As opposed to if I ask her, have you been to any good concerts recently? Or what kind of music are you into? Then I am treating her as an individual and not as a representative of her entire group. Do you see the subtle shift in difference there? Okay. So please take that in. Remember that the next time you're in an interracial interaction. Okay. Because when we act too casual, when we ask questions like, "Did you go to the Cowboy Carter concert?" That is that causes offense, and then that causes sparks to fly in the interracial interaction. Does this make sense? Okay, and then if sparks do fly, the white person feels terrible and centers themselves when the person of color becomes offended. So instead of being like, oh shit, what did I do that caused that reaction? The white person is like, oh, oh, so and so hurt my feelings. And I was just trying to be friendly. And why did she say that? That was so mean. Okay. When in fact, the person responsible for this whole mess is the white person. And this whole mess could have been easily avoided had the white person treated the person of color as an individual and not made assumptions or acted on stereotypes about them. Is this making sense to people? So, what can we learn from this study? Or actually, there's something else before we get to that part. I want to talk about what happens in an interracial interaction, and this should be in much bigger font, is intergenerational trauma. Okay. When I am interacting with an indigenous person, when I am interacting with a Black person, okay, it is not just the two of us in the space, it is the Black person, the indigenous person, and their entire lineage, their generations going back, right? Whose survival depended on not inflaming a white woman who could result in their death or the death of their loved one. Okay? Do you understand how deep that is? And so their ancestors are whispering to them, be very careful. Proceed with caution. Do not engage with her. Do not offend her. Do not trip her up in any way because she could hurt you very, very badly. Okay. On my side, as a white woman, I've got intergenerational trauma too. I've got all my ancestors who were the ones inflicting the trauma on her ancestors, telling me, you better suppress her. You better keep her in her place because she will hold you to account for everything we did to her ancestors. Okay. So you be the dominant one and put her down and keep her in her place so she does not make you accountable for everything we did. That's whispering in my ear. Okay. So part of having better interracial interactions is for me to tell my ancestors, thank you. I understand you are trying to protect me, but please go away. I got this. Okay. It's going to be okay. Does this make sense to people? Yes, colorism is a very important factor too. 100%, Michael. 100%. Okay. Oh, yes. Cue white tears. Exactly. Cue white tears. So the white person gets all upset and starts crying. What does that do to the relationship with the person of color? Are they ever going to want to trust that white person? No. Okay, you may as well just, you know, this just divides and causes further wedges, okay? Which is exactly what we do not need any more of. Okay? So, let's go to the next slide. So, what can we learn from this study that can help us to have better interracial interactions? So I'm going to say a few strategies. And also, if you have thoughts, please share them here because I would love to hear from you. What strategies do you think are useful for interracial interactions? So I'm going to say the first one is to pause, slow way down, relax, be mindful of your energy, your body language, your tone, and focus, right? And soften. Okay? Take a deep breath, relax, don't feel self-conscious, don't feel nervous. It's going to be okay. Tell your ancestors to pipe down, okay? Um Learn to pronounce names correctly. This is very important. And whatever you do, don't say something like, "Oh, that's so exotic." Okay? No. Do not comment on people's names. Sometimes I will say, "That's a beautiful name." Okay? But um do not comment on the name. Okay? Of course, I like to comment on my name because I think it's funny, but um, there are exceptions, but do not say anything like your name is so exotic. Okay. Learn and in general, don't express surprise. Okay? Do not like for example, if you're interacting with a let's say you're interacting with a Latina woman and she tells you, "Oh yeah, I graduated from Harvard." Don't say, "You graduated from Harvard?" Do you understand? Don't express surprise. Take whatever she says about herself at face value the same way you would with anybody else. "Oh, you speak English so well." Why would you say that to someone? You may think, "Oh, I'm giving them a compliment." But on their side, it's landing like, "Oh, you looked at me and made an assumption about how well I would speak English, and now because how I speak English differs from your assumption, you're expressing surprise about it." Don't express surprise. If you feel yourself wanting to express surprise, don't do it. I'll give you another example. Um, uh, I take my kids to University of California, San Francisco, um, health care, right? It's the biggest hospital system in San Francisco, and it's a teaching hospital. So there's always residents who are coming in and learning how to be pediatricians. And some of them, I'm not going to lie, look so young that I find it difficult to believe that they could possibly be a doctor. But they are, right? So when you meet your child's doctor, don't say, "You're a doctor?" Don't do that. Don't express surprise. Okay? Keep it to yourself. Um, okay. Oh, yes, I still have this comment up. Okay. Now, ask open-ended questions. So again, instead of saying, "Did you go to the Cowboy Carter concert?" If you're trying to bridge and you're trying to find points of commonality and shared interests, just ask open-ended questions like, "What kind of music do you like?" Or "Have you been to any good concerts recently?" Those are examples of open-ended questions. A closed question would be, "Did you go to the Cowboy Carter concert?" Because then the answer is either yes or no. Do you see the difference? Okay. Don't expect a lesson. This is extremely important. I learned this one from, I think her name is Dr. Twyla Tharp, who's the president of a college in North Dakota. And she calls this translation exhaustion. And this is what frequently happens in organizing spaces when white people show up to become engaged as activists. And before the meeting can even start, they want the people of color to explain to them the whole history and context of the issue instead of doing our own homework and understanding that as we go into the meeting. So by the time the person of color explains all of that, they're already exhausted and they're unable to do the productive work that they're supposed to do at the meeting, which is figuring out what we're going to do about it. Okay. So don't expect a lesson, just Google it. Okay. Or ask a friend who's further along in their journey, right? And understands these things better to explain it to you. But don't expect a lesson. And in general, listen more and talk less. Okay? the more space you can give, but don't interrogate the other person. That's another thing. Don't bombard them with questions. Just relax. Okay. And silence is okay too. You don't have to fill every instant with chatter. Does this make sense? And if you do cause harm and someone has the kindness to share with you, oh, I don't, uh, that was actually offensive to me, what you just said. Instead of inflaming and just say, oh my God, thank you. Thank you for pointing that out. I'm sorry for offending you, and I'm going to learn better. I'm going to learn from this and do better next time. Okay? Just receive the feedback with grace because feedback is a precious gift that is going to allow you to get better at interracial interactions. You are going to develop this skill through experience, okay? Because I cannot tell you, rules for every single kind of interaction under the sun, okay? But you can, when someone shares that with you, treat it as the precious gift that it really, really is. Okay. So, are there any scenarios? Would anyone like to share in the chat some scenarios of things that they have experienced, a bad interracial interaction, and we can go through and say what could have been done differently? Um, or I can share something else from my own experience. I'll share this story. I was on a panel. It was at a women's co-working space in San Francisco. It was a conversation about interracial sisterhood and healing racial divides among women. And it was fishbowl style. So there were five panelists, and then there was an empty seat, and the five panelists were each from different racial identities, and I was the white person, the white woman on the panel. Um, and the room, it was a huge room. There were, I don't know, maybe 80 women there. I would say about half of them were women of color and half of them were white. And so, each of the panelists took a turn speaking. And then we invited people to come sit in the empty chair, and they could either make a comment or they could ask us a question. And so we finished each of the panelists speaking, and then people from the audience were coming up and sitting in that empty chair and asking questions. And it was only women of color who were doing this, right? Finally, a white woman got up and sat down in the empty chair. And I leaned over to her and I patted her on the arm and I was like, welcome. Well, one of the other panelists immediately pointed out, why did you do that for her and not for any of the other people, any of the other women of color who came and sat in that chair when it was actually more painful for them to sit in that chair? But you didn't express welcome, you did not touch them. Why did you coddle her? And I was like, "Oh." I literally wanted a giant hole to open up and swallow me, right? It was so embarrassing, right? Because here I am, I'm supposed to be like the exemplar white woman. I'm like, "Oh my God, how did I do this?" But what did I say to her? I said, "Thank you. I'm I'm very glad you pointed that out, and you're 100% right. I should not have done that, and I won't do that again." Okay? So, this just goes to show that this is a lifelong learning process, y'all. But the more experiences we develop, the more emotional resilience we have, the more joyous, because once we earn trust, and I cannot tell you how much I value my interracial friendships. And that is what I want for everybody. I want everybody to have incredibly powerful, meaningful interracial friendships. It's so important because think about this. How do we find most of our jobs? How do we find most of our opportunities? It's through people we know, right? So if 90% of white people are not friends, don't have a single friend of color, imagine they are exclusively exchanging social capital with other white people. That is a huge barrier that is further creating the racial wealth gap, um, all kinds of gaps in earnings, wage gap, et cetera, et cetera. So let's start to bridge these divides, folks. Let's learn how to have better interracial interactions. And if you are a white woman and you want to go really deep on this summer, I have a special program that I'm doing for the summer of 2025. It's called Becoming Trustworthy. You can DM me. I'm on all social platforms. I don't usually check Instagram. So the preferred social platform would be LinkedIn. DM me on LinkedIn. Do it soon because today is June 9th, and we're launching actually 2 weeks from today, June 23rd. It's gonna be a small group coaching and one-on-one coaching for white women who really want to increase their ability to earn trust of women of color so that we can unite across difference and secure our collective freedom and safety. And it's for white women who want to really become activists or engage more deeply in their activism. So that will be the dual thread. How do we earn trust of women of color? And how do we deepen our engagement in activism? Because white women of all the marginalized groups in our society, we hold the most power and privilege. And if more of us change, we can sway the direction of this entire country so that we can all secure our safety and freedom. Okay. So thank you so much. We've gone for a whole hour here. I hope you found it valuable. If you found it valuable, please do let me know. And yeah, I really appreciate everyone who tuned in. And thank you, and go out there. Please apply what you learned, and let's have some better interracial interactions. Thanks, y'all. Okay, bye.